back at 8:10 this morning, day 2 of our special series, Together Again, TV's greatest cast reunited. One day at a time may have defined the moment when feminism went mainstream. The classic sitcom seized that moment with grace and, of course, a whole lot of humor.
What is that supposed to be?
This is it, this is it.
It's hard to believe, but 30 years ago, a successful show about a divorced woman raising her teenage daughters alone was considered revolutionary.
Oh, look, you don't have to worry about my mom. She's a liberated woman. I'll check you out later.
All I sold was one pair of false eyelashes, a lipstick, and some eyeshadow. And that was to a guy.
One Day at a Time revolved around single mother Ann Romano.
Steve came over and introduced himself.
And you got picked up.
Okay, let's face it, people do get picked up.
Mothers are not people. Mom.
Sometimes called the first cool TV mom.
You know, when a man puts his hand on a girl's shoulder, but he's really thinking lower. I'm thinking higher.
And her dueling daughters, Julie and Barbara.
I want to wear something that does something for me.
What about a hefty bag?
All the while dealing with the prying eyes of handyman Schneider, the Burt Reynolds of the boiler room.
The ladies in this building don't call me super for nothing.
Schneider eventually won their hearts and an Emmy for the role. Ann and her kids didn't always get it right.
You want to go back to your father?
I do?
Go.
Mom, Julie.
Here. Here's your bus fare. Have a nice trip. For the first 17 years of my life, my father made the decisions. And the next 17, my husband made the decisions. The first time in my life, I make a decision on my own. And I blow it.
But they always figured it out, of course, one day at a time.
Stick with me, huh? We'll make it. I promise. I love you.
And again, this is what the cast of One Day at a Time looked like back then, and here they are now. Bonnie Franklin, Mackenzie Phillips, Valerie Bertinelli, and Pat Harrington. Folks, good morning to all of you. Nice to see you. Was that a wow because you love it or not?
Love it. Look at that double chin.
That's hot stuff, man.
Who supplied these chairs for us? Look at them. They look like
me.
fidgets here compared to these
I'm in
ladies.
kindergarten. I want to go bathroom.
I think this could be the day this series falls apart based on what you guys have done so far. Let me take you back to 1975. Did you realize that by playing this woman who was a single mom to these two girls that you had your finger on the pulse of something?
We knew pretty quickly that we did, because as soon as we went on the air, we started receiving a lot of letters. And the letters were saying, this is my life. This is what I'm going through. This is what my mother is like. This is, or my father, or this. And so we pretty quickly got the idea that we were touching something, and it was a Norman Lear show. So he was the one who was really
just quickly,
touching
give the tidbit here of whose life this show was based on, because she was here recently.
She was. You had Meredith Baxter on a couple of weeks ago when you were doing Family Ties. This is actually Meredith Baxter's mother's life. Meredith Baxter's mother was an actress, Whitney Blake.
Yes.
See that?
We didn't know that.
30 years later, I find something else.
Whitney Blake was a single mother raising Meredith Baxter.
I did that. I know
Okay.
that.
Right.
Well, which is it? Come on, you can't have it both ways. You did know or you didn't know?
We knew.
We didn't know
And Whitney Blake married Alan Mannings, and so it was the stepfather to Meredith, and
Okay.
Alan Mannings created the show.
There
We
we
remember
go.
the names in the beginning.
Exactly.
Whitney Blake.
All right, so wait a second. You two played older and younger sisters, but you're only like 6 months apart. That was weird, right?
Yeah, really weird. I played 16 and you were 14?
13 or 14.
And actually, yeah, we're 6 months apart.
And the sibling rivalry that took place on the show, how did
Hated
that
her.
carry over
Hated her.
to off the show?
She's such a...
Don't say it. Don't say it.
Oh, but there's there's been a sort of a Madonna roll. I should keep it going, right?
Yeah, right. And is it true that the director made you cry the very first day on the set?
I don't know if it was the first day, but yeah, Don Richardson, do you remember him?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, he kept, this was my first big deal. I'd done a couple commercials before that, and I didn't know quite how to project. Of course, I don't have that problem any longer because of Don Richardson and this guy and her. But yeah, he was just, you know, he would come over the intercom and say, project, Valerie, project, and then finally yelled at me, and I was like,
Yeah. Then along comes him, all right? He's smarmy. Smarmy.
What do you never smarmy?
A little smarmy.
Smarmy, a guy who calls a guy smarmy.
Yeah, come on, you want a piece of me? Yeah. What did you guys think of him, character-wise?
I love Schneider.
Smarmy.
I love Schneider.
Schneider became so much a part of the family. You know, you talk about the family of One Day at a Time, and it grew into his being an absolute essential part of what we were.
Oh, Pat, what did you want to do with the character? What was your goal for this character?
Well, you know, as Bonnie said on Norman Lear's show, we dealt with some really difficult topics, warehousing the elderly, Jesus freaks in high school, you know. So you got to have something for 4 or 5 pages in the first act, then the second act, where you're guaranteed some laughs. I'm a laugh guarantee.
Yeah, and the Burt Reynolds of the Boiler Room. How'd you like that label?
Like
that was good,
great.
huh?
That's great.
Pat always said that he wanted, no matter what, he wanted to have the 3 funniest minutes of the show. And generally, he wrote them himself.
Did you write a lot of your own stuff?
I wrote a couple of episodes.
Yeah?
With my partner, yeah.
And Pat did pull off the funniest 3 minutes of the show quite often.
All right, who was the goody two-shoes on the set? Or at least on the show?
Here.
On the show.
So
I don't
your
want to mention
character...
any names.
Right, okay, so you were goody two-shoes on the show.
I was 15, 16.
Okay, but were you really a goody two-shoes?
For the first year, probably. Then I got corrupted.
Yeah.
Don't look at me, anybody but myself.
Who was the one who corrupted you?
Don't look at me.
All right, should we let the white elephant in the room speak for a second, okay? Look, when we were doing the pre-interview with all of these 3...
Am I a white elephant?
No. But, you know, clearly you had some problems during the shooting of the show. You left twice for drug reasons. And, you know, I want you to know something.
Are you kidding?
No, I should fill you in on this. I want to tell you something, Mackenzie. When we pre-interviewed them, I think all of them said, let's not talk about that.
Yes.
And yet you said, let's not ignore that.
Well, I believe that it is. It was, and therefore we don't gloss over it because it would be untrue to history.
Look where you are now.
Right, and
the pride.
Also, you have to honor history. I mean, that happened. It was a big part of what we did, and I don't ever want to dwell on it, but I still,
right.
You know, I said, well, let's touch on it and move on.
I guess the only part that I do want to ask about, though, is how did her issues impact the rest of you while you were actually making the show?
Well, of course it impacted us. It impacted how the show ran. It impacted that we lost Mackenzie for a good period of time. And it was a wake-up call, certainly, for me. As I knew, you know, I'm this kind of live in another world, a parallel universe somehow. And I didn't even know what was going on. I knew it was bad, and I knew stuff was going on.
I thought I lived in the parallel universe.
That's what it is.
As little as she knew what was going on, I knew absolutely nothing.
Really?
Yeah, you know, we didn't have that many scenes together. I didn't see a problem. what are they talking about? You know, and then when she was taken off the show, it was like a weight.
Why did that happen?
Pat was shocked.
Changing subjects now.
Yes,
people around here could not... We're trying to remember the lyrics to the theme.
Why?
Because it gives me an opportunity to say, who wants to sing the lyrics?
Yeah.
What were the lyrics? Seriously.
This is it. This is life. This is the one you get, so go and have a ball. This is it.
This is it. Straight ahead, and rest assured, you can't be sure at all. So while you're here, enjoy the view.
Keep on doing what you do.
Hold on tight. We'll muddle through one day at a time.
Well, where's
so
the walk
on your feet.
There you go.
So whop on your feet.
Walk
It's
on
actually
your
so
feet.
up on your feet.
The one who shouldn't have remembered any of it remembered it best there.
I remember everything.
It wasn't a very good theme song.
It wasn't terrible. It was kind of catchy.
It was catchy.
When I was touring with my dad and the New Mamas and the Papas, I used to sing it every night on stage. We did a rockabilly version of it, and that song has sort of followed me my whole life.
You won an Emmy for your role. Did you break the Emmy? Is that true? Did it break?
What are you doing?
No, I'm serious. I'm serious. I feel terrible about that.
You don't feel terrible about it. You want to examine it.
No, I don't.
Yes, I broke my Emmy.
How did it break?
All right, folks, I broke my Emmy.
How did it break? I don't know the story. I really don't.
All right.
Is it a simple story or is it a bad story?
Oh, listen, I'm going to tell you. I played a lot of tennis, and I had a new tennis racket. and it was strung too tightly. So I put it on some books, and I put the Emmy on it to weigh it down, and I figured I'd leave it there for 24 hours. What's he done?
Made my day.
Speaking of great sitcoms.
How you doing? How are you guys?
Hey, Gary, how are you?
You guys look great.
Nice to see you.
How you doing? How you doing, Matt?
I'm all right. We should mention Gary doesn't just hang around here every day. He's actually on the show today.
I'm actually coming up a little later.
Yeah.
But,
What a
I
nice
just want to say
drop-in.
hello.
It's good to see you.
Yes,
Hey, I
thank
voted
you.
for you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
We're going to check in with Gary, as I mentioned, in a second. Just real quickly.
So anyway, it fell off. I can really tell you were interested. Yeah.
All right, he's on to the next thing.
Gary, now, come in now. We're boring.
I'm going away now.
Gary, good to see you. Pat, thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming. Valerie, Mackenzie, Bonnie, thank you very much. This has been great. You are the most trouble of any cast we've had together.
Fun time. Thanks, Matt.
And by the way, Valerie's going to be back a little later on to talk about her new book. That's in our next half hour. And tomorrow on Together Again, TV's Greatest Cast, we're going to have the cast of Murphy Brown right here. But up next, will he or won't he? Wingsuit flyer Jeb Corliss lets us know if he'll take the plunge or if fog will keep him grounded. Valerie says no. We'll check in with him right after this.